All right, let's dive into one of the most unbelievable cases in modern American history. For over 100 years in South Carolina, one family name basically was the law. This is the story of how that powerful dynasty came to a shocking and violent end, exposing a web of lies, fraud, and ultimately murder.
I mean, think about this. For a century, if you were a prosecutor in that part of the state, your last name was probably Murdaugh. They were a legal institution. But all of that power, all of that history, just completely shattered when Alex Murdaugh was found guilty of murdering his own wife and son.
So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts with a frantic 911 call on a hot summer night, June 7th, 2021, at the family's massive estate.
Down by the family's dog kennels, first responders found an absolutely brutal scene. Maggie had been shot multiple times with a rifle, and their son Paul had been killed by 2 shotgun blasts. The sheer violence of it was staggering, and it immediately kicked off this massive investigation into who could have done this.
Now, to understand the prosecution's case, you have to get inside Alex Murdaugh's head at that time. They argued this was anything but a random attack. No, this was an act of pure desperation from a man whose entire world was about to come crashing down around him.
And a huge piece of that pressure came from a fatal boat crash involving his son Paul a couple years earlier. A young woman, Mallory Beach, was killed, and her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Alex. That lawsuit was coming to a head. In fact, on the very day of the murders, there was a hearing scheduled that could have forced Alex to open up his financial records, and that, prosecutors said, was something he could not let happen.
And why was that lawsuit so dangerous for him? Because Alex Murdaugh was living a secret life. He was a fraudster on a grand scale, stealing millions of dollars from his clients and his own law firm to fund this lavish lifestyle that was really just a house of cards.
$4.3 million. That's how much he eventually admitted to stealing from the family of his own housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, after she died in an accident at his home. Her sons testified that Alex came to them at the funeral, promised he'd take care of them, and then just pocketed the entire insurance settlement himself.
And it wasn't just vulnerable clients. He was stealing from his own partners. This number? That's from just one case where he stole the legal fees that were supposed to go to his law firm. He just diverted the check into a secret bank account they knew nothing about.
You can just imagine the shock when his partners finally started to figure it out. This was the quote, well, the cleaned-up version of it, from one of his partners, Ronnie Crosby, when the firm's CFO uncovered what Alex was doing. Crosby said on the stand it was illegal, it was unethical, and it was clear the walls were closing in fast.
So, you've got this motive of total desperation. Prosecutors argued Alex killed his wife and son to create a tragedy so immense that it would distract everyone and delay this financial reckoning. He even created an alibi for himself. But a single, tiny piece of evidence from his son's phone blew that alibi to pieces. Alex's story was firm, and he told it to everyone: police, friends, family. He said he took a nap at the main house while Maggie and Paul went down to the dog kennels, which were pretty far away on the property. He claimed he only went down there much later to check on them, and that's when he found their bodies.
But here's the thing. Investigators pulled data from Paul's phone, and they found a short video he had taken of one of the dogs at the kennels. It was recorded at 8:44 p.m., and in the background of that video, you could clearly hear people talking. And who was talking? Well, multiple people, including his best friend and law partner, Ronnie Crosby, got on the stand and said they were 100% sure they heard 3 voices: Paul, Maggie, and crucially, Alex Murdaugh. This video placed him at the scene of the crime, with the victims just minutes before they were killed. His alibi was completely destroyed.
So, with the alibi totally shattered, the prosecution then started to build its case with forensics. They needed to physically connect Alex Murdaugh to the weapons and the act itself.
Now, they never actually found the murder weapons, but they found shell casings at the scene from a .300 blackout rifle that were a perfect match to other casings they found on the property from earlier. This told them the killer likely used a familiar, family-owned gun.
A huge part of the forensic case came down to something called gunshot primer residue, or GSR. You can think of it like microscopic glitter. When a gun is fired, these tiny particles spray everywhere, and they can get on the shooter's hands and clothes.
So they tested the clothes Alex was wearing that night, and yep, they found a few particles. But the really damning piece of evidence, the one that made the courtroom go quiet, wouldn't be found for months. Get this.
Investigators found a blue rain jacket that Alex had taken over to his mom's house after the murders. The outside had a little bit of residue, but the inside of the jacket was absolutely coated in it. The prosecution's theory was simple. He fired the guns, then bundled them up inside this jacket to hide them. So let's put ourselves in the jury box. You have this powerful motive of pure desperation. You have an alibi that was proven to be a lie by his own son's phone, and you have a forensic trail pointing right at him. What do?
Well, the jury didn't need much time. After a 6-week trial filled with emotional and complex testimony, they came back in less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts.
For the murder of his wife and the murder of his son, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 2 life sentences to be served one after the other. He will die in prison.
You know, the Murdaugh trial was so much more than just a murder case. It was the total and complete implosion of an American dynasty. It really is a chilling story about how a century of power, built on secrets and lies, can all be wiped out in a single night of unimaginable violence.